Chair Weeks. We're good to get started whenever you are.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the recording secretary for roll call. It is 4:30, and can we do roll call?
Commissioner Carter?
Here.
Commissioner Cisco? Here. Commissioner Holton?
Here.
Commissioner Peterson?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders?
Here.
Vice Chair Duggan is absent. Chair Weeks?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present with the exception of Vice Chair Duggan.
Thank you. And with that, item 2, approval of minutes. We don't have any minutes today, so then we'll move on to public comment. This is on non-agenda matters. So we're taking public comments on item 3, as I said, non-agenda matters. This is the time when any person may address the commission on matters not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. So if you'd like to, if you are in the council chambers and would like to speak, go to either one of the podiums up there, and please state your name for the record.
Is the mic on?
Yes.
Okay. Can I use overhead? Does it work?
Yes, give me 1 second.
I'm not getting anything.
Apologies, give me 1 second. There we go.
My name's Cliff Wiggum. I'm one of the property owners in the Roberts District that was named Roberts District as part of the Downtown Stationary Specific Plan. This is a zoning map for part of the DSASP. I would like to point out the positioning of the Roberts District is the south of Highway 12, and it has a zoning of a 6.0 floor area ratio, and across the freeway in Wally Farms is a 2.0 floor area ratio. And we are on the south side, which is part of Southwest and Roseland, and we're burdened with the 6.0 floor area ratio. This map better illustrates it, that we are obviously part of Roseland and Southwest, and there's a 4-lane elevated solid earth freeway between us and Railroad Square. That's a pretty significant barrier. And we are burdened with the zoning. However, as part of the Downtown Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, we have been removed from the Infrastructure Financing District and do not receive any of the benefits. This is an excerpt from the staff report, which reads, Roberts Road area south of Highway 12 and west of 101. This area is better aligned with the potential future Roseland area EIFD since it is the east anchor of the Bassville Road corridor. This corridor is the central Roseland axis and in the past has been part of the Roseland study area. Publicly desired infrastructure upgrades in the Roberts Road area as part of the EIFD formation process should be examined holistically within the rest of that corridor. This is language stating that the Roberts District is not part of Railroad Square, but is part of Roseland. No developer that I've talked to will give me documentation that they can't build at a 6.0 floor area ratio. They just plain don't respond when I send them the information. They verbally tell me that they can't build at that density in the Southwest, which is a area that is very depressed and needs affordable housing. This area should have affordable housing. The Roberts District is ready to go. I completed the environmental assessments. I have the completed phase 1 and 2 reports on file. It's ready to be developed, and the city rezoned the property to this 6.0 6 weeks after we completed the environmental assessments. I had developers lined up to come. Now they all walked away. Having trouble finding documentation that any developer will give me in writing. They don't want to do it. They just refuse to answer or reply, or they'll verbally tell me they can't do it, but it doesn't happen.
Excuse me, sir, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments on non-agenda items? If then you can go to the podium, and a timer will be set for 3 minutes. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Dave Zedrick, and I own a property actually in Cliff's area. He is representing me on our property, and we've been there, my wife and I, now 49 years. We worked hard all that time, but for the last 5-6 years, we've been losing tenants, and we're wanting to retire and wrap up and move on with our lives. I'm turned 80 this year, and my wife is 79, fortunately, in semi-good health. The assumptions, if the city staff were to agree to reducing the floor area ratio to a 2.0 from a 6.0 standard, and I didn't catch all of Cliff's comments, but building costs would be much less expensive, therefore more affordable for buyers. It is estimated that 60 units per acre can be built on our 1.7 acres at that 2.0 FAR. The potential buyers for our property will likely be much easier to find if the project is modified to be built at that 2.0 FAR standard. We are wanting, we need to retire, we need to move on with our lives, and we've been trying to sell the property for well over 10 years now, and I don't know what else to say other than it's ready to go. We just need the support from the city. The city has us at a 6.0 FAR scale. We're in Roseland. We're not in downtown Santa Rosa. We're located on Sebastopol Road, straight 3 blocks down. You're at the former Lucky's food store. We can't get out the back way to go to downtown unless you go on the bike path, which is somewhat dangerous now and then. Otherwise, you go back to the 2 end block streets and come around that way. It's not convenient for people who don't have cars and whatnot for normal use. So we are anxious to move forward, and that's basically all I can say at the moment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else in the council chamber for public comments on items that are not on the agenda? And once again, to remind you, these are items that are not on the agenda tonight. And you could state your name for the record, please.
My name is Ricky Scow, SCHOW. My comments are regarding your sidewalks. As you can see, I'm a paraplegic. You guys care more about your trees than you do the safety of the people, especially disability people. For example, 4 years ago, over by Sam's Market on Tupper, I fell and broke the small bone that I have left in my amputated leg. Over by McDonald's on Mission, there's a 2-inch gap between the sidewalks. You go through the city, I came down 2nd Street, down 3rd Street to get here. I counted 20, and no exaggeration, 20 different spots where they needed fixed. You would rather keep the trees than not fix the sidewalks. It's ludicrous. This is the only city that I've ever heard of. I grew up and born and raised in Southern California. And it's the only city I've ever heard that you need a permit to take it down. I mean, especially if it's on private property. I mean, if it's raising the sidewalk, something needs to be done. And you guys don't give a damn, excuse my French, but you don't care at all about our safety. It's insane. And I would challenge any one of you to take this scooter right here out for a half hour and see what it's like. I know you won't take the challenge, but I would challenge any one of you. Because if you take the challenge, it shows you what kind of people you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Do we have anybody in Zoom?
If you're participating via Zoom and wish to make a public comment on non-agenda matters, please raise your hand. Chair Weeks, there are no hands raised at this time. And just a heads up, we do have about 5 people from the public participating today.
Thank you. So with that, I'll go ahead and close the public comment period on non-agenda matters. And with that, we'll move on to item 4, which is the commission business. And I'll start by reading our statement of purpose. The Planning Commission is charged with carrying out the California planning and zoning laws within the city of Santa Rosa. Duties include implementation of plans, ordinances, and policies relating to land use matters, assisting in writing and implementing the general plan and area plans, holding public hearings, and acting on proposed changes to the zoning code, zoning map, general plan, tentative subdivision maps, and undertaking special planning studies as needed. With that, we'll move to the commissioner reports. Are there any reports by my fellow commissioners? Commissioner Cisco?
Yeah, I'd just like to advise the commission that I had the privilege today of attending the Caritas Homes Phase 1 grand opening. Chair Weeks was there and Commissioner Sanders was there for the ceremony. We had the opportunity to view some of the rooms, and I mean, it's just a lovely space, and the rooms are like amazing, just amazing. As part of the ceremony, we heard a lot about the difficulties of putting together the kind of financing required and the multiple places that they had to seek financing in order to get this thing built. And it's really an amazing feat between, you know, our housing authority, state funds, et cetera. So it was very educational and informative. The phase 1 has about 64 units, 30 of which will be permanent supportive housing. So those that live in those 30 units won't be moving, and they'll be subsidized to stay there. Phase 2 will be another 64 units and another 30 of that same type. So it's a pretty, it's an amazing feat that Burbank Housing and Caritas has been able to pull off. So it was a privilege to be there.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanders?
I'd like to echo what Commissioner Cisco said. It was a really lovely event today. I was there, and the building is amazing. So it's definitely an asset for Santa Rosa. I'm on the Waterways Advisory Committee, and we had a great report given to us about the General Plan 2050 overview, which was fantastic. What I'm really impressed by, and we all should be very happy with, is the amount of effort that staff put into making sure community was involved in this process. It's really impressive, the work that they've done, evidenced by this coloring book, which is really fantastic. What Amy Lyle said, and we're going to miss Amy Lyle because she's moving on to a new adventure, and we'll be welcoming Sherry Mead, but what she communicated was that while we're coming up with goals for our town, for our city, what do kids think about our town and our city? And this is a great book, and it asks questions like, interesting facts like, how old are you? Or, I identify as, what would you like to see in your town in 30 years? Now, I don't know about you, but when I was 13, I wasn't thinking about what was going on 30 years ago. Better kids than I. And of course, it's in English and Spanish, which is really neat. So bravo, extremely well done. We also got some notes here, so forgive me. The waterway, some of the water people reported out that Creek Week is coming up in September, from September 16th to the 23rd. Really cool events like a tour of underground downtown. All right, so if you are like me, that just sounds way too fun, way too cool. Apparently, a lot of people think it's way too fun, way too cool, because there's a waiting list to get there. But there are other things. On the 20th, they're doing the Dash for Trash, which I love. This is that you get to win the Golden Trash Cup. Who doesn't want that for their mantle? Tour de Creek, with over 40 miles of creeks. That should be also fun, and of course a cleanup. And if you have any, want to get more information about it, you can go to srcity.org/Creek Week. This is why I'm wearing this fantastic t-shirt tonight. Very, very fashionable. Ours to protect. Our creeks and waterways are our jewel, and it's great to see that so many people care and do a lot of work. And lastly, this sort of paradigm shift that we took as the Waterway Advisory Committee, we're the police of developers so that they don't destroy our creeks, is one way of looking at it. But it was brought today that maybe we're not just the policing of developers, but maybe we can be partners in helping developers accentuate our creeks, to make the creeks, the waterways, a feature of future development, as opposed to just walling it off. How about let's make it so that we can have access to them, where we can bring our kids, our families, and actually partake in the brilliance of our creek system. So it was a great day. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, I have a few, and I also was able to go to the Caritas grand opening, ribbon cutting, whatever you want to call it, and it's very cool to see it come to fruition. There's been a shelter of some kind on that site since the late 80s, and it's nice to see this brand new building that will be providing housing to a segment of the population that is in much need of that housing. We had today a mayor's lunch with all the board and commission chairs, and there was a discussion about the underground walking and a lot of grousing, because it sells out, quote unquote, it's free, but it sells out really fast, and even people on the Waterways Advisory Committee, including the chair, didn't get signed up for it.
A little disappointed by that, actually.
So there was, we are going to continue having those lunches every other month with the mayor. She did want to make sure that the chairs passed on her thanks to all the board and commission members for all the work that we do and that you all do. And hopefully within the next few months there will be a luncheon for all the board chair members as a thank you. We used to have that pre-COVID. I did want to mention the Santa Rosa Merit Awards. The ceremony for that will be on the 18th of September at Finley. If you're interested, it will also be on the city's YouTube page. I'm trying to think. I think that was it for me. So do we have any public comments on item 4.2, Commissioner reports?
If you're in person and wish to make a comment on item 4.2, please make your way to the podium. If you're attending via Zoom, please raise your hand. Chair Weeks, we have no public comment on item 4.2, Commissioner reports.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to item 5, which is department report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Weeks and members of the Commission. Jessica Jones, Deputy Director for the Planning Division. A couple things, and Commissioner Sanders stole my thunder here, but yes, we are sad to announce that Amy Lyle, who is our supervising planner for the advanced planning team, is moving on to a new adventure. We're super happy for her, but is a huge loss on our team. She is going to be taking on the role of Community Development Director for the town of Corte Madera. So we're very excited for her, but again, big loss on our team. But we will be working feverishly to fill that role and continue on with the important work that they're doing, in particular with the general plan. So on that note, yes, as you all are aware, our draft general plan is out for public review. And we are doing a tremendous amount of community outreach, as Commissioner Sanders alluded to, really trying to reach every member of our community, from the youth to everybody who typically doesn't get involved in these kind of tends to be somewhat dry planning topics. So we're working really hard on that. We've had 2 community workshops thus far that were very well attended. We had a workshop with the Food Alliance group. We have had a number of pop-up events where we're going to locations that are existing events throughout the city and showing up with all of our materials and gathering information and collecting surveys from folks. We'll be out this weekend at the Santa Rosa Marathon and the 5K, 10K, as well as at Montgomery Village. So lots of good outreach happening. And then just as a reminder for the Commission, we will be bringing the general plan as a study session for you on September 14th at your regularly scheduled meeting, and are looking for comments from all of you on the draft that has been prepared. And then finally, just a quick update. I know you guys are all aware of the Shenate property. That project is moving forward. We do have an application for a neighborhood meeting, and they have renamed themselves. They are now Woodlands at Shenate. So if you see that, that's what that is. We are working to update our website. We've got a dedicated email address for that project, but the first step is the neighborhood meeting. And so that will be scheduled likely at the end of September, and we'll make sure that that information gets out to the Commission. It will be both an in-person and a Zoom meeting. And so if the Commission is interested in participating, please just contact me, let me know. We want to make sure that we don't end up having a quorum and creating a Planning Commission meeting. But that meeting will also be recorded, so you will have an opportunity to view it after the fact as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on department report?
Chair Weeks, I don't see any hands raised at this time, and there's nobody making their way to the podium.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to statement of abstentions. Are there any abstentions tonight? Okay, seeing none. We don't have any consent items nor report items, so we'll move on to our first scheduled item, which is public hearing, Bunya tree removal appeal, 10802 2nd Street, TR 22-062. I do want to let everybody know that we've had a request from staff who received an arborist report earlier today and haven't had a chance to review it, and so we would like to continue this item to September 14th. Can I get a motion from someone to do that?
I'll move that we continue this item to September 14th.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Can you please wait one moment?
Well, I'd like to speak before you vote on the matter. We represent the Salvation Army.
Okay.
We would like to say
okay?
something.
Okay, just one moment. I just want to check we'll postpone voting on it until we hear from the appellant?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you for alerting everyone that that is what staff is recommending, a continuance in order to review the late submitted reports from the appellant. But yes, please, if the appellant would like to address staff's recommendation, please do so, and then you guys can determine if you want to make a motion to continue or not.
So,
Case, could you please state your name for the record?
for the record, my name is Kevin Konasek. I'm an attorney here in Santa Rosa. I am here with my law partner, Michelle Zaromsky. We represent the Salvation Army. And as far as we're concerned, this is fine. We were prepared to put on a presentation today about this, but I'll give you a little encapsulated view of it. Imagine that you have a dog that is the Westminster Kennel Club champion. And that is a rare dog. It's wonderful. And that dog, you're walking that dog and it bites somebody. Guess what? In California law, our premises liability statute says you're going to pay for the injuries to that person who the dog bit. Now, let's say a month later, a year later, 5 years later, the dog bites somebody again. Guess what? You're on the hook not only for the compensatory damages, but punitive damages, because you have knowledge that the dog was dangerous. Now, I ask you to just think, we have a witness here who will testify to getting bopped on the head by one of these banyan tree cones. We also have a witness, an expert witness, who's going to testify, contrary to the city's witness, that there is a moderate to heavy probability that there's going to be another cone that's going to bop somebody. Now, I think there are some people in here are lawyers, and they know the local law firms here, and we have some excellent plaintiffs' attorneys, but you get bopped on the head by a bunya cone, and you have a catastrophic brain injury, that's $40–50 million. Now, our issue is not the banyan tree. We love the banyan tree. We love Lou Burbank. We love all this stuff. But who is going to take the risk for the potential injury damages for it? That's it. Is the city going to do it? Are the people who have submitted declarations to with the staff, are they going to? Are you staff going to take responsibility? Nobody. No, you're not.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
So, excuse me. What I'm asking, practical solution here. I would ask, and I know that Ashley Crocker is here from the city attorney's office. We would ask that Planning Commission recommends that we meet with the city attorney's office and your risk management people. We speak the same language.
Okay, I am going to put a stop to this. If you want to speak to me after, we can do so. What was put here on the table to the commission was a recommendation for a continuance, and you indicated that you would like to speak as to the recommendation of the continuance. So
we're fine with the continuance. What we would like, what we're asking, you asked for a continuance, we're asking for a recommendation from the commission that why don't you guys get together and talk with risk management and the city attorney. That's it.
Thank you. The motion is on the table.
I'll second.
Thank you. So that was moved by Commissioner Cisco, seconded by Commissioner Holton to continue this item to September 14th, 2023, our next regular meeting. Can we call roll, please?
Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Cisco?
Aye.
Commissioner Holton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that passes with 6 ayes and one, one absence, Vice Chair Duggan absent. So then that will be continued as we just voted until the 14th of September. So then we'll move on to item 9.2. Which is the Hollyhock subdivision tentative map, time extension, 1650 Mita Avenue extension. I'm going to wait until the chamber clears.
Leave that bucket in front of the table down.
Okay, if we could continue now. So as I said, this is item 9.2, public hearing, Hollyhock subdivision, tentative map, time extension 1650 Mita Avenue, extension 23-0001, and Jandon Briscoe is making his debut in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, Commissioner Weeks and everybody of the Planning Commission. I'm Janet Briscoe, City Planner Trainee, and I'm here to present Hollyhock Subdivision Tentative Map Time Extension. On August 10, 2017, the Planning Commission approved the Hollyhock Tentative Map, which is a 16-lot subdivision located on 2 acres at 1650 Mita Avenue. And before the Commission today is just a one. Oh.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. Thank you, Commissioner Cisco. Sorry, Jandon. This is an ex parte item, and it's in my script, and I should have read it, but I didn't, and it takes a village to help me. Thank you. So this is an ex parte item, so we'll start with Commissioner Cisco.
I have no new information to report.
Commissioner Holton.
I also have no information to report.
Commissioner Peterson.
I also have no new information to report.
Commissioner Carter.
I have nothing to disclose on this item.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sanders.
Nothing to disclose.
And I visited the site as I have before and have nothing further to disclose. So now, Jandon, continue. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And so, yeah, before the Planning Commission today is just a 1-year time extension that requests that they extend the expiration date from February 8th, 2023 to February 8th, 2024. And as I stated previously, the Planning Commission approved the tentative map on August 10, 2017, and they approved the conditional use permit for the Hollyhock subdivision. And prior to the expiration, the applicant submitted an entitlement on January 18, 2023 to extend the tentative map for 1 year. And in staff's initial complete list review, we noticed that the conditional use permit required an extension as well. And during that time, there was some back and forth to get both of these entitlements in line, and that's why we're here today. And this slide shows is a visual image of the tentative map. And as you can see, it's a 16-lot parcel. It's a 16-lot parcel on 2 acres, which is consistent with the general plan designation. And the parcel has access to Brookwood Avenue to the east and Mita Avenue to the west. Here's an aerial view of the project site. And as you can see, it's surrounded by single-family residences to the east and to the west. To the north is undeveloped, and this is in the southeastern quadrant of Santa Rosa. The zoning designation is R-1-6, which is intended for single-family residential uses. And the general plan designation is low-density residential, which allows for 2 to 8 units per acre, and this project complies with that as well. This project was found in compliance with the California Environmental Equality Act and qualifies for a streamlining measure under section 15183, since it's consistent with the general plan, and it also qualifies for a categorical exemption since the project under section 15332, since the project is an infill development. Thus, it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the Planning Commission approve a one-year time extension for the Hollyhock tentative map, extending the expiration date to February 8th, 2024. Here's my contact information if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff before we hear from the applicant? Does the applicant have a presentation?
I don't see the applicant here today, and I don't see him on Zoom, so no presentation today.
Okay. So with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing for this item. So if you have public comments, if you could make your way to one of the podiums. And please state your name for the record once you get there, and you will be given a total of 3 minutes, and you should be able to see a countdown timer.
Okay.
There's the microphone. If you want to raise the podium, there's a button on the side, the other side. And if you could speak directly into the microphone so we can hear you, please.
All right. My name is Larry Corbin. I live at 1770 Meta Avenue, which is the property directly south of the proposed project. We have been trying to get this project going and taken care of. I lost about 40 yards of dirt last year in the storms because of the cut that the company made. I've requested that the company build the fence and repair my property. I have received no information from Mr. Futrell. This is something that has been drawn out they have not been on the project since April, to my knowledge, of doing anything. We're looking at weather conditions coming again, and we'd like to see when this project is going to be moved forward rather than sit here for 2 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the chamber? Are there any hands raised via Zoom?
Yes, there is one person, Lee J. Pierce. I'm going to send you a prompt to unmute yourself. Please state your name for the record. Lee, I sent you a prompt to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. Again, excuse me, my name is Lee J. Pierce. I live directly across from this project, 2202 Brookwood Avenue. And like the other gentleman just said, this project has been a real eyesore, really, for me. And when you get a couple of RVs parking out there, in some ways it blocks your view from the eyesore, but in other ways we had to go out and buy some cones to keep construction people and other people from blocking our view, blocking our house and the whole thing. So like him, I'm interested in how long it is going to take to get the 16 homes over there. But the biggest issue that I would like to raise is the traffic. We already have a traffic problem. I've been here since 2015 at this very area, and it's like a speedway at different times of the day and even night. So we're interested in where will be the entries and exits to this project, and will there be safety concerns with those entries and exits, i.e. flashing yellow lights to cross the street We just had a family move in next door to us, 2206, who have small children. They're currently playing in the back side of the house, but no one ever knows what happens when parents aren't looking or whatever. So traffic is a huge problem, traffic calming. And yeah, just like to register that. And finally, I'd like to know where there's probably on srcity.org, I should know, but I'd like to know where we could get our hands on sort of the schematics of the project, how the houses will look, that whole thing from a visual aesthetic kind of place. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Are there any other comments? Okay, I see someone going to the podium. And then we'll go back to Zoom if there's any other hands raised. And if you could please state your name for the record.
Absolutely. My name is Erin Ford. That's F-O-R-D.
Can you raise the microphone?
Can you hear me?
Thank you. I don't want you after bending down the whole time.
Yeah. I am actually a resident of an adjacent subdivision. It would have been the Meta subdivision. I live on Glenwell Drive. Our subdivision is a one road in, one road out. That is, Meta is the only way I can get into my house. Meta is the only way I can get out of my house. There are firearms within the Section 8 subdivision that's located to the south of my property, but Meta is, again, the only exit strategy I have that dumps me out at the rear of the fairgrounds. So the approval and moving forward of any subdivision for the Hollyhock subdivision would allow possibly another exit strategy for myself if, as we know in this area, there was a fire. I would be able to get myself, as I'm a single mom, myself and my daughter out to safety in a more prompt manner. I would like to point out, though, and maybe I'll bring it up in another planning meeting, that there are some empty fields that are owned by the Sonoma County, Santa Rosa, I believe, that are just south on Meta. Meta doesn't connect, but it would give a whole lot of people the ability to escape their homes if they were in danger. So I would like for this subdivision to go on and be completed, just because, again, construction, et cetera, for my fellow neighbors. But I understand the pitfalls currently for construction in the area. So I feel okay with an extension, but I just did want to go ahead and speak my piece that extension of the road between Brookwood and Meta would be extremely helpful and possibly save lives for people in my neighborhood if it happened to get on fire, because there's a lot of dry fields around there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other hands raised on Zoom?
Chair Weeks, there are no other hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item and bring it back to the commission for any final questions. And let me just follow up with a couple of the comments that were raised by the public. Biggest question seems to be, when's the project going forward? Do you have a timeline that you could share with us?
No, not at the moment. I do not have a timeline.
Okay.
Chair Weeks, Amy Nicholson, supervising planner. I can just add that we looked at the engineering permitting history, so there are approved improvement plans for the subdivision, and they also do have an issued grading permit. That grading permit was issued back in 2021, so I'm not sure. It sounds like maybe they've done some work and they intend to continue it, but we don't have an actual schedule from the applicant right now.
Okay. And then the other question about what's the project going to look like, is there somewhere that you could point the public to the schematics?
That was back in right at the beginning of the time that we actually, Mr. Futrell challenged us on requiring architecture for the Planning Commission for small lot subdivisions, and he won, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but so we don't have any approved architecture. When he submits for building permits, those plans will be available for the public. So when the Planning Commission approved the map and the conditional use permit for the small lot subdivision, there was no architecture provided.
Thank you.
And I can just add that it does look like they are some like master plans, which would be architectural plans. So we can, let's see, Jandon, I think, can share his email address, and then, or whoever is interested can come down to our department and we can certainly show you any plans that we have on file that relate to architecture.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the Commissioner Sanders?
Being a firefighter, evacuation routes are kind of important to me as well. The development, though, creates an extra street. Is that correct? Hollyhock would be the street. So I guess what I'm asking is, it seems to me that there's, with the development, another egress. Am I seeing that correctly? From Meta?
Yes.
So once the development goes in, now there's not just one way in and one way out?
Yes. As you can see on a tentative map, there's access to Mead Avenue and to Brookwood Avenue, and you were correct that Hollyhock Lane will be splitting that parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
I think we've addressed it a little bit, and this is certainly not the first time it's come up in one of our meetings, but I guess my question is, based on the public's comment, is there a timeliness standard for tentative maps that we're looking at? I know we see some that have been extended for a decade plus. So is there an enforcement mechanism? Is there some standard we're looking at?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Peterson. We do have a limit on the number of time extensions that we can grant for a tentative map. Some of those projects, that were alive for 10 or 12 years was primarily due to the recession and all the state mandated extensions. So in this case, this project, I believe, has, actually I don't want to speak because I don't have the document in front of me, but I know that there have been a number of extensions already applied, and so I do not believe that they have more than 2 one-year extensions left.
So it looks like that this is the first of the 5-year, or first of the 5 one-year extensions that they can get. So the automatic extensions don't typically count towards those 5 extensions allowed via the MAP Act. So this would be the first of that. Okay, just to clarify, because this is a little bit strange. In 2019 and 2020, the city allowed for automatic 1-year extensions of time. So that was tied to the Tubbs fire. So that does count against the 5 available, but it was automatically applied. So it wasn't a discretionary extension before the commission. So it sounds like they have received 2 of those, and then with this one combined, that would be a total of 3. So they would have 2 one-year extensions available should the commission grant the one this evening.
And so it's not indefinite. And what would happen if you don't build and you've run out of tentative map extensions?
In that case, the map would expire, so they would have to apply as if it were a new project.
Okay. And then in the meantime, is there anything on file related to the conditional use permit or the tentative map that was previously approved in 2017 that would have sort of construction standards, swales or anything like that, if there is rain or other inclement weather?
I can't say for certain just because I don't have those plans in front of me, but because there are approved improvement plans, so that looks at the streets, the sidewalks, and it has different protective measures in the construction notes. Those should be on the improvement plans, and those are available. We can certainly, any member of the public can take a look at those as well if they come to our office or contact Janin by email.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carter?
Yeah, is this the type of project that would be entered on any of the wonderful dashboards you've been telling us about that track city projects?
Yes, it should be shown as an approved project on our pending development report, at least.
Okay, and it would have additional project information at that site? Timelines or approval dates, that sort of thing?
There are approval dates, and we hope in the dashboards we're working on to link to additional information, but we haven't fully fleshed all that out yet. So,
Well, we might make that site known and available to the public.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so with that, if somebody would like to enter the resolution. Commissioner Holton.
I'd like to make a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Santa Rosa approving a one-year extension for the tentative map for Hollyhock subdivision located at 1650 Meta Avenue, assessor's parcel number 044-032-006, file number extension 23-004, and await further reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so that was moved by Commissioner Holton, seconded by Commissioner Cisco. So let's go ahead and start with Commissioner Sanders for any comments regarding this.
I guess I don't really have any other comments. Hopefully, we can expedite and hopefully get some shovels in the ground so that we're not losing dirt and we can have some evacuation routes and get that project off the ground. So I'll be supporting.
And the findings?
Yes, I can make the findings to grant the extension.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
Yeah, I think the project has been properly reviewed and it makes sense to extend so that we can go ahead and get the project completed in a timely fashion, and I can make all the necessary findings to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
Yes, I can make all the required findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Cisco?
I too can make all of the required findings.
Commissioner Holton?
And I, like my fellow commissioners, can make all the required findings. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also can make all the required findings. So with that, if we could have a vote, please.
Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Cisco?
Aye.
Commissioner Holton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that passes with 6 ayes, 1 absent, with Commissioner Duggan, or Vice Chair Duggan being absent, and we'll move on to item 9.3. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me, first of all, need to add the verbiage. Please note this action is final unless an appeal is filed with the City Clerk's office within 10 calendar days of today's decision pursuant to Zoning Code Section 20-62.030. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to item 9.3. Is everyone okay with just proceeding, or okay? So item 9.3 is a public hearing, 7-Eleven, sale of beer and wine for off-site consumption. It's a conditional use permit. It's located at 136 College Avenue, CUP 22-052. This is an ex parte item, so we'll start with Commissioner Cisco.
Yes, I visited the site. I want to disclose that on my way to visiting the site, I go down Cleveland, I had to pass by the 9th Street Market, which is a small market that does have liquor sales just outside the 1,000-foot radius that staff was looking at. And as I passed by, this was 9 in the morning, there were 2 police cars, officers having some kind of a conversation with an individual who appeared to be an unhoused transient with a cart right outside the door of the 9th Street Market. So, and I did ask Ms. Murray to see if she could find out any more about that. It doesn't appear that we have any other information. It may not have been an actual call for service there, but I don't know what was going on, but thought I'd tell you. I also went back and reviewed the Planning Commission meeting minutes from 2004, which I was on the commission at that time and was part of that decision. And Ms. Murray included that in our materials, so no new information there, but want the commission to have that available. And I also had a brief conversation with Greg Parker of the St. Rose neighborhood.
Thank you.
Nothing else.
Thank you. Commissioner Holton.
That's interesting that you also had a disclosure with a situation with somebody who was inebriated, because I too also visited the site, and in doing so, this was actually at about 6 o'clock at night, and there was a gentleman that was actually passed out drunk on the sidewalk. So, and right in front of the market. So it's unfortunate, but other than that, I have nothing further to disclose.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson.
I visited the site and have no additional information to disclose.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter.
I also visited the site and have nothing further to disclose.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sanders.
And I have visited the site and have nothing further to disclose.
And I also visited the site and have nothing further to disclose. Well, so with that, we'll start with Ms. Murray.
Sorry, I need help getting this up on the screen. Okay, good afternoon, Chair Weeks and members of the Commission. The project before you, as was already discussed, is the 7-Eleven request to sell beer and wine for off-site consumption at the 136 College Avenue location. There you have it. It's the project in a nutshell is a conditional use permit to sell beer and wine for off-site consumption. And here's a photograph of the site as it appears today. Here's an aerial view of the site. It's outlined in blue. I think, yeah, there's a star. And just to give you kind of an idea about the neighborhood context, there's residential directly adjacent to it to the south. The corridor there is lined with commercial businesses, both on both sides of Highway 101, and then there's of course more residential both to the north and to the east of College Avenue on the east side of the freeway. So this image shows the 1,000-foot buffer taken from our GIS system, Geographic Information System, and there's the green star is the subject location, and then these 2 stars show the closest points within that 1,000 foot radius where there are other similar uses. These are both gas stations that have convenience stores. It's a little bit different from the 7-Eleven, which is really a convenience store that has gas station pumps. So here is an aerial of the site taken, or yeah, I guess it's probably from 2022. And something that came up in some of the questions that were raised by the Commission prior to the meeting is what physical changes or what material changes have taken place. Well, there's more than material changes that have taken place since 2004, which was when a denial was made for a similar conditional use permit. And I'll talk about that history in a minute, but I didn't reorder my slides. But this slide addresses one of those questions. And that is that this fence that's in the photograph shown at the lower left-hand corner has been constructed. And back in 2004, that fence was not there. In fact, that fence was constructed within the last couple of years based on some Google images, street images that I took. And the other physical change that's taken place is that there is the foliage. You can see through the foliage. Back then, you could not. It was very, very dense, and it's cleaned up now. And so I wanted to point that out while we were here, and I'll reference back to it. So, previous application history, there's quite a lot. Back in 2002, the Planning Commission and the City Council approved a project that would allow the expansion of the service station and add the convenience store. That project involved, the reason it went to the council is it involved a rezoning, so it had to go to the council. It was with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. In 2004, there was a request for a public convenience or necessity. With the public convenience or necessity, that used to be the police department made that finding, I guess, that it would or would not serve public convenience or necessity. That was denied initially by the police chief, and then appealed, and was eventually approved by the council on appeal. So whoopsie, I think I jumped ahead of myself. Then in July and September of 2004, we had a project come back now that they had their public convenience or necessity finding. A project came in for a conditional use permit, and that's the project that I was referring to earlier, a similar one where it was really very similar. It was a service station with a convenience store requesting to sell beer and wine from the convenience store. That came to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission denied the project, and the City Council, it went up to the council on appeal, and the council denied the appeal and upheld the Planning Commission's decision to deny the use permit. The findings that were made to deny the use permit were, I'm just going to do a quick summary of what's up on the screen. The first finding, it didn't promote livable neighborhoods. I'd like to talk about each one a little bit as we go. Since then, there has been the adoption or the update to the downtown station area specific plan. That update included extending the boundary of that specific plan area up to College. One of the full text of this general plan land use policy includes putting shopping or everyday needs within walking distance of residential uses, and that there was a memo that went out to the commission, and I believe that was also in the staff report that really called the full text of that general plan goal, which was I don't know that the text changed since 2004, but I do know how it reads today. So the second finding, that the rear of the convenience market is adjacent to a dead-end street. It was adjacent to a dead-end street, and it's still adjacent to a dead-end street, but I'd like to point out, too, that there's a pedestrian access, so people can walk not just from the dead-end street, they can access College Avenue. But what they can't do is access the store from that side of the property anymore because of that fence that's there. I will say that I have visited the site too on several occasions, and what I've noticed back on that dead-end street is that there was some debris out there, but it was all debris that was really associated with the residential uses that are there. I didn't see any bottles or cans or candy wrappers or chip bags or anything like that, which would be more associated with the retail store. And the debris that I saw also wasn't something that would suggest that there was homeless issues. I mean, it was like an empty a box from something that somebody had bought at Home Depot and some boards. So then the third finding, there's a significant transient population in the area. I'm going to wait to address that one because we have Officer Ryan Corcoran from Officer Captain Ryan Corcoran from the police department, and he's going to chime in here in a few minutes, but I got to wait till I get to that slide. So I'm deferring on that one. The fourth finding that was made, that alcohol is currently available for sale at various locations in that area, and I pointed out there were 2 within 1,000 feet right along College Avenue. But the zoning code doesn't regulate concentration for this use. The zoning code does regulate concentration for some uses, but not this use. So finding number 5, the proposed use is not appropriate at the time due to lack of compatibility. I wasn't present at the time. It was before I came to work for the city. I came about 2 years later. But as I mentioned earlier, we reevaluated that downtown station area, and we extended the boundary to include all the properties south of College Avenue in this area, including this. So there's not just the physical change with the fence, but there's also the change in the city's intent for that area. Let's see, and the lack of harmonious integrations with the neighborhood and the potential for a nuisance. Again, I'm going to wait. I think that Captain Corcoran will speak to that. And then the last finding that was made is that the proposed use is not appropriate this time, as it will not serve public health, safety, or welfare. I've said this finding since I have been working for the city in planning since 2006. And I finally actually went up and I looked up the definition of welfare, and it really includes the public health and safety, among other things. And I think that we've addressed this finding in the draft resolution, and I'll defer to that here. So then moving back into history, in November of 2009, another, not the business operator from 2004 and not the current business operator, another business operator came in and was approved for a PCN, public convenience or necessity. I want to say there was a question, why didn't we see a conditional use permit following that? I could only speculate. I don't know that anybody has that answer, at least anybody here. But what I really want the Planning Commission to understand is that historically there was a big confusion between, is it public convenience and necessity? Or is it public convenience or necessity? And the difference between the and or the or, I think we can all pretty much agree that it's never a necessity, but it's usually a convenience. So spoken from somebody who likes Sonoma County wine. So the beer and wine sales. I clearly didn't edit my slides, so I'm just going to tell you what's on this slide is the general plan land use designation, which is neighborhood mixed use. And again, that's a new land use designation. The land use itself was created with that downtown station area specific plan. And then the zoning is consistent, and it's within the station area combining district. There's the correct slide. I kind of had a hybrid there. The zoning code. There's a special, this is one of those uses that there are special things to consider in making your decision and special review criteria for staff, and also special conditions for the business operators. And I've listed those here. That they need to, the business operator would need to take corrective measures if there were some objectionable behavior, which is typically calling the police department. Keep the site clean, it's been my experience in my site visits that has been the case. Provide staff training, and I believe that staff training is a requirement also of the ABC alcohol Beverage Control, and I'll say that we also have a representative from the Alcohol Beverage Control. I'm just going to call them ABC, it's easier, and she's here and available for questions after the presentation. Staffing, surveillance, and security. I'll let the applicant speak to that, but they have, my understanding is that they have a complete, every inch of the property under surveillance right now. Section provides, here we go, more operating standards. Limitations on product sales and displays. They can't have displays within 5 feet of the front door, no video or arcade games. Areas used for alcohol beverages shall be lockable, and package sizes of no larger than 24 cups that can be sold. So I'm going to say here that 7-Eleven has been doing this for a really long time. I think it was, I went and looked at the history on Wikipedia, and I saw that they started doing this right after the Prohibition. They started selling food and beverage. They changed their name to 7-Eleven when they were really pioneers with long hours and stayed open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. for convenience store items. So they've, as far as, we've got 11 7-Elevens in the city of Santa Rosa. They all are required to have those lockable refrigerators and what have you. And every 7-Eleven I've ever been to has that I've noticed. I haven't always gone in looking for beer or wine, but when I have, they've had it. So next, the signs and postings. There's no on-site consumption. They already have an illuminated address sign, and they, that's posting the conditional use permit would be required. And then, of course, compliance with other requirements from outside agencies, and more specifically here is the ABC. So there are also review criteria, and backing up to that last slide, or those last couple of slides, the project has been conditioned in the resolution to comply with that section of the code. These were not itemized, and it was very intentional that they were not itemized because regulations change. They either get more restrictive or less restrictive, but a business operator is required to remain in compliance. So regardless if it, if we change something, if we add something in, they would have to comply with that, even though it's not specifically addressed on their resolution. The additional review criteria that staff considered and worked with the applicant and the ABC on, and the police department, first, as I mentioned, or I don't know that I did mention that we granted a public convenience or necessity for this project. That was given earlier this year from Planning and Economic Development. I included with the attachments to the staff report some statistics, and since we have Captain Corcoran here, I'm going to let him respond to questions about those. Concentrations of licenses per capita, again, that's not something, we don't regulate that is regulated by the ABC, and I'm sure that their representative will be able to answer questions about that as well. And the numbers of alcohol-related calls are going to Captain Corcoran again. So let's see, additional, the proximity of alcoholic beverages to outlet, to residential districts, as you saw in the area. It's adjacent, directly adjacent to one district and relatively close to a couple of others, but it is not within 1,000 feet that I can tell of any daycare centers, park and recreation facilities, places of religious assembly, or schools. Whether the site plan and floor plan incorporate design features, reducing alcohol-related problems. Again, I've been into the store. They've got a locked bathroom. It was actually out of order when I was there, but there is a keypad lock on it. It was I just have to say that I looked at the coffee counter, and it's the cleanest coffee counter I think I've ever seen in a store. So they keep a tidy shop. So I'm going to let them, if you have any questions about their existing surveillance, I'll let them speak to that. And I didn't see any benches or anything like that. In fact, my experience when I drove in my last visit was that I saw 2 police cruisers, and I thought, oh no, what's going on? And I went and asked one of them, roll down your window. And he answered, and he said, we're here every day because this is where we like to get our power drinks. So anyways, that was refreshing. So the required findings, there are 6, and with any conditional use permit, and those were included in the draft resolution. The project has been reviewed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. It is exempt, categorically exempt, because it involves the addition of, retail use for a couple of the retail items. Any expansion is negligible. And it's consistent with the general plan and the downtown station area specific plan. So issues, city staff, in planning, we know that there's always a lot of questions raised for offsite, the approval for offsite sales for beer and wine, or sales for offsite consumption. The project plans were referred out to the usual suspects, fire and traffic and engineering and building, but also to the police department, and housing and community services was also consulted. There were no issues raised, but this is when I'd like to ask Captain Corcoran to come up and assist me in here, because he's got some comments that I'd like to include as part of this presentation, and he is heading to the microphone. I'll finish the rest of this after he's able to speak.
Welcome, Captain.
Thank you. Might take a minute. There we go. Well, thank you for having me, Chair Weeks, members of the commission.
We can't hear you.
How about now?
A little closer.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Going as high as I can here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was an interesting review from other ones that I have looked at, in that my first question was, there's a 7-Eleven that doesn't serve beer and wine. Because I've never heard of that. I was having a conversation with Susie, and out of the 11 7-Elevens in our jurisdiction, 10 of them serve beer and wine. So it's the only one that does not. So that was interesting. So then I dove into the documents and the history, looked at the area, and I decided to meet up with the Kelly Kuykendall from the Department of Housing and Community Services, and the 2 of us drove around the neighborhood. We looked at the business. It's a very clean run shop. They have a really nice fence behind it. I then went to the other 2 gas stations within the 1,000 feet, the one at 50 West College and the one at 300 College. They serve beer and wine, and if anything, the 7-Eleven seems to be a more suitable location than those 2. I don't see any real impact to the police department that's substantial. We don't have any opposition to this project. From an equity standpoint, I just don't see how one business or other 7-Elevens can do business a certain way, and then this one would be excluded. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Why don't we, do you want to ask questions of Captain Corcoran now and then go back to Ms. Murray to finish, or how would you like to handle that?
I think I should finish the presentation, and he'll stick around for questions.
Okay. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, and so when I wrote this slide or created the slide. There were only 2 public comments, and we've received, I should say, 3 public comments. 2 of them came from the same person, and then 1 came from a phone call. You were provided with a copy of the emailed comment. The phone call was somebody voicing support for the project. He said they've been a very good neighbor, and he didn't like the sign that they posted. I had to take credit for that, so I guess they got a pretty good review. We received a public comment that was uploaded as late correspondence, I think this morning. I think I only got it this morning. Today's been kind of a blur. From Denise Hill from the St. Rose District, thanks. And in there, she provided some maps, some Google Maps that showed where some of the homeless facilities were. And I believe that during their tour today that the captain was talking about, they also looked at those sites, and I do have some comments from her just basically labeling them. It included Caritas. It includes a lot of places that, you know, the living room, things like that. So anyways, and of course, Ms. Hill was also expressing that she was not in support of the project. So with that, it's recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the Planning Commission, by resolution, approve a conditional use permit allowing the sale of beer and wine for off-site consumption for 7-Eleven at 136 College Avenue. That concludes my presentation. My contact information is here, and I know sometimes there are callers who can't see the screen, so I'm just going to say if you have any questions and you're calling in, my phone number is 707-543-4348, and you can call me anytime. I do answer my phone. And that concludes my presentation, and we do have, again, several people available for questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so let's go ahead and ask questions of staff first, and then the applicant can make their presentation. So, Commissioner Cisco?
Yeah, mine isn't actually a question, it's a correction, and I think the reason why Ms. Murray and Captain Corcoran don't realize there is another 7-Eleven in Santa Rosa that is not allowed to sell alcohol was because it was part of the Roseland annexation. And at the time that it was, and I have a bunch of history to give you guys, but it does not sell alcohol. It's on the corner of Dutton and Sebastopol Road, and that came about with a lot of community work with then Supervisor Efren Carrillo in developing the county's alcohol ordinance, and because of its proximity to Joe Rodota Trail and the Roberts Avenue area. So just want to correct that. There is another one. So,
thank you.
Are there other questions of staff at this time? Commissioner Sanders?
And we're not asking any questions of the...
No, you can ask Captain Corcoran too, if you wouldn't mind going back up to the podium.
Thank you. One question. We're talking about a new fence that's been put in. What does that fence remedy?
It limits access from the dead-end street to the property. And there was some old photographs that were provided in the memo, and it shows back in 2004, I think it was 2004, it might have been a little bit later, but there was very dense foliage and no fence. And so it provided an area for people just kind of tuck in and hunker down and have a cocktail, right? Okay. So that is no longer something they can't do that. Now it's fully visible. I mean, I've walked back there, and I think that might be a photograph that I took that's up there on the screen. So
I walked down the little pedestrian access.
Yeah, you'd have to walk down the pedestrian access, and so there is an out at that dead-end street. A vehicle can't drive. It would, at that intersection, it would be, you know, a hairpin corner to get onto the freeway. But a pedestrian can walk through. And so, yeah, so somebody from the housing development could walk right, you know, right down the sidewalk and around the corner, but they would have to access the site from College Avenue. That's the only way that they can.
Right, so I guess in theory, or in actual practical matter, someone could purchase whatever they purchase and walk around down the access path and hunker down. They just don't have, they have to take a few extra steps to hunker down behind.
They have to take a few extra steps to get to that location, but there's no place, there's no foliage now for them to hide in, and the property line is fenced off. So I don't know if the foliage was cleaned up, or the planted area was cleaned up when the fence went up. I don't know when that occurred, but at this point in time and over the last, I mean, if you do your Google Street View images, you can see it's been, since 7-Eleven's been there, it's been kept very tidy.
And you mentioned that there were only 2 other businesses, and I guess that's within a certain 1,000-foot range. So what about 1,001? How many do we have?
On College Avenue, I'm sure you know that you've got the, what is it, Safeway down the road. There's also a little a funky little liquor store that's been there forever. I've never been in there, but it's down a little bit to the west. There's also, as Commissioner Cisco mentioned, the 9th Street Market, and I think that's about 1,200 feet away. So, but yeah, so there are others, and I can't really, other than doing the same Google search that Denise Hill did, I can't tell where all the places are. I mean, walking up and down the street or whatever. So I did look along College, and I think perhaps, were you able to look those up? Other uses within 1,000 feet?
Just within 1,000 feet, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Julie from the ABC, she looked within 1,000 feet because that was the parameter I gave her. But yeah, but again, we don't really look at concentration for these.
Right. So it's not as though someone can't get a beer if this does not allow, I mean, within a reasonable walk. If 7-Eleven doesn't get this passed, there's still people in that neighborhood, there's still a place for them to walk. It may be 1,012 feet, but you can still go get a beer.
If you want a beer, you can get a beer pretty quickly around there.
Right. And probably can get a sip from someone too. Captain, you made a comment that I found interesting. You said that this location is a little bit more suitable than the other 2. Can you explain why?
From my appearance at looking at all of them, it looks to be a bigger location, more of a convenience market or a grocery structure based on size, where the other ones are a little smaller with more limited choices. And so one thought would be you would look to that location and expect to find a certain amount of product, and you would probably then have to drive to a secondary location if, say, you were looking for beer had you been there.
Right, so it's not necessarily the location itself, it's what's at the location. The actual physical structure is more substantial than the other options.
Yes, sir. It's not the geography, it would be the design.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of Commissioner Holton?
And while you're up there, Captain, I figure I'd just ask you this really quick. So you were stating that that the department has no objections, and that's great. But I'm just really curious because I'm trying to kind of go through my head in regard to finding 6, and I'm just curious what your opinion is on how this, how having the CUP would serve the public health and safety.
When I say I have no objection, I don't think it's going to cause an increase in police services. And so I don't know that it's going to serve public health and safety. It may be more convenient as a matter of convenience for someone that may pull in there expecting a certain product, and then they need to get in their car and drive 1,000 feet to the next store. I don't see it having an additional impact on the police department because they serve beer and wine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff before we hear from the applicant? Okay, so if the applicant would like to make a presentation, that would be great. Thank you.
Too high. Good evening. My name is Bruce Evans. I represent the applicant. I have with me tonight Raj Uppal. He's the franchisee. We also have Alex Finn.
Excuse me, could you speak directly into the microphone?
We also have Alex Finn. He's the area leader for 7-Eleven. I want to start by thanking the planning department, particularly Susie. They've been incredibly professional throughout this process and responsive, and we thank them for that. The staff report and all its attachments is certainly thorough, and it has all the information that we wanted to convey as part of this application. So I don't want to repeat it, and I don't want to spend any extra time making a long presentation. Of course, we are pleased with the positive recommendation from the planning department. Of course, we are very pleased with the statements from the police that they do not oppose this and do not see the sale of alcohol creating additional burdens for them. That being said, we are not naive about the concerns and the potential impacts from the sale of alcohol. Those concerns are, of course, very legitimate, and we take those concerns seriously. And Raj can speak to the steps that he takes to be a good neighbor, and that would include the sale of beer and wine. What I want to try to talk to you about as directly and sincerely as I can is these concerns about alcohol, because I can see the commission, I think some of you are wrestling with these issues. I see every city that I show up in wrestles with these issues. My community and my neighborhood where I live wrestles with these issues. I would submit there's nothing about those concerns that cannot be addressed with appropriate conditions and good management. And to that end, it wasn't required by staff, but if we can go to, I believe it's slide 3 that we have. We tried to volunteer a set of policies that would be in place at this store, and if the commission is receptive, we would certainly stipulate to make these part of the CUP in terms of enforceable conditions. So that would be limits on the size of single beers, no small single beers, no malt liquor or cheap beer products would be sold. We would propose a significant hours restriction. The staff report mentioned 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. As to the sale of beer and wine, we would cut that way back so that window would be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. There'd be no exterior advertising of alcoholic beverages at this site, and then there would be not more than 10% of the retail space would be allocated to beer and wine. If you feel those conditions are helpful, we can agree to make them part of the CUP. If you're not inclined to make them part of the CUP, most of those conditions can be made part of the ABC license with the police department's recommendation, and we'd be happy to participate in that process. I know you've all been to the store. If you had an opportunity to look around, I think you would see what the captain saw, and that is, this is basically a small grocery store. The goal is to be a resource for that neighborhood so that they can get a little bit of everything they might want in terms of basic grocery and convenience items. So if you go there, you're going to see charcoal, you're going to see milk, you're going to see medicines, you're going to see yogurt, you're going to see fresh fruit, you're going to see sandwiches and salads. Their fresh food items are delivered every single day, fresh to that store, 7 days a week. So the beer and wine, this is not an effort to force alcohol on the neighborhood. It is an effort to make that store convenient, to have a complete product offering. Beer and wine fits into the range of groceries that customers expect and that they're asking for at this store. So, again, we understand the potential concerns. We are grateful for the staff support and the position of the police department. We will go above and beyond what's in that staff report. As I think was evident in terms of the comments about the way the store has been run, the appearance of that store, 7-Eleven started this business at the end of 2021. They built the fence, they cleaned up the foliage, they added security cameras in that back area, they added lighting, and they will do anything that they can reasonably do to make it the best store possible and to make you feel comfortable approving this application. And if there is a concern still, I'll point out you have one extra tool in your chest, and that is you could make this application, or sorry, you could approve this CUP and build in an expiration date. That would put the burden on the applicant, on 7-Eleven, to come back and prove that they've done a good job and prove that it hasn't been a problem and reapply to extend that CUP. At their cost, their application, notification, or you could build in a one-year review. So the city has all the tools at its disposal to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do, and we're going to do it the right way. I know Raj wants to speak to you, but I am happy to answer any questions. Can we go out of order?
There were three speakers for the applicant team.
I'm sorry.
Yes, she was one of the three speakers that we listed. This is Shauna Morales.
Okay.
But she has to go, so we can hear from her.
And would you like us to advance these slides?
I'm done with the slides for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me? My name is Shauna Morales, and I live local near. I live about 5 minutes away, and I go to this 7-Eleven twice a day, every single day. And when I go in there, the staff is very friendly. The place is always clean. There's always fresh when they do have like their chicken wings. It's always fresh. The store is very clean, and like I said, the staff, the guys that work there are very, very friendly, good people. And I do actually, when I'm there, I do see a lot of the Santa Rosa PD there. And when I first was to go in there, I'd see them and I would think, oh no, that something's going wrong or something's happening. And they actually go there. They're actually buying chicken wings. They're actually buying stuff. And I see them in there like a lot of times. I rarely ever see any kind of problems when they have somebody pulled over or they're outside if somebody's getting in trouble. And I've gone there a couple times, and there have been a couple people outside homeless people asking me for change. I'll go in the store and I'll tell one of the workers, and they take care of it right away. But I mean, this store is kind of more like when you go there, I have my 2 kids, and it's like a family little market. It's actually, that's the only 7-Eleven that I will go to, actually. And so, I mean, I really, really like it. And my kids go in there, they treat my kids very well. So, I think they should have this. Thank you.
Thank you. And right now, we're taking comments from the applicant. So if the applicant has additional comments, and then after that, we will go ahead and open the public comment portion for the public to weigh in on this. So just a reminder to everyone.
Yeah, hi, my name is Raj Appal. I'm the franchisee of the store. I've been there since October 2021, sorry. And we've been trying to be a part of this community, and we do like Project Day games. We have donated water. We have done different things to be part of this community. And as far as some of the questions were outside, my employees go out very often outside to walk the perimeter of the business. We pick up if there's any litter, if there's any somebody's just hanging out, we just ask them to leave or anything like that. So we are trying to do the best we can be as a neighborhood market. I think that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the applicant before we open the public hearing?
No, not unless there's any questions.
So are there any questions from the commission to the applicant before we go to the public comment portion? Commissioner Cisco?
Yeah, my question isn't really for the applicant. It's more for Ms. Crocker to clarify the applicant's willingness to self-impose operational standards and how that doesn't work. So she could explain that to us.
Thank you for the question. I can start and then staff can chime in if they want. But on those proposed conditions, the city cannot condition a project such that it limits or addresses alcohol sales. So the conditions, all of them actually, we would not find to be appropriate conditions with the exception of the surveillance, which I believe is already a condition of approval. So it's the ABC that regulates alcohol sales. So for the size of the containers and all of the other self-imposed conditions that they suggested there, I thank you for the suggestions, but that's not within the city's ability to add those conditions. And Ms. Murray's going to chime in.
I am. The applicant volunteered that they are aware of that. They volunteered that they would self-condition their ABC license, and in conversations with the ABC, and Julie Routhier is here to speak. I had to make sure, I hope I pronounced that right. She's here, she can help, but they are very reluctant to impose conditions like that because it becomes an enforcement issue. How do they do it? So anyways, if you have questions for her, she could respond to those again. Yeah.
Commissioner Sanders?
This is for Ashley. It was mentioned that the CUP could be conditioned or have an expiration date. Can you explain how that would work?
That was something that I believe we had done several years back, and it is, I would not recommend it at this time. It causes, yeah. Thank you. It causes just some complexities in terms of the conditional use permits run with the land, and we do have an official process in our code that outlines how to revoke those permits. So I would prefer that we stick by the code, and if there does need to be a revocation, there are certain findings that you make, some of which are, you don't follow the conditions of approval, et cetera. So if you did approve this CUP and they later proved to be not the greatest applicant, we could go through a revocation process. So I prefer not to expire permits as they do run with the land, and they typically should not be expired without the revocation process. So we no longer engage in that conditioning.
Can you give me the Cliff's Notes of revocation process, length of time, or how does that?
It's a public hearing, and there are, I don't remember how many findings, 5 or 6 findings that could be the basis for the revocation. And so I think probably not following the conditions of approval would be the one that would come to mind as most applicable here. If we pull it up, I don't remember the code section offhand. I should, because we were talking about it recently, but do you want those actual findings? But it would be an open public hearing process, and the applicant would come in to the Planning Commission and have their opportunity to speak and address the findings for revocation.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So we'll go ahead and go to the public hearing on this item while you look for that section. So I'm going to open the public hearing. If there's anybody in attendance, please make your way to one of the podiums, and you'll have 3 minutes. Not seeing anyone. Is there anybody on Zoom?
If you're attending via Zoom and wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. Chair Weeks, there are no hands raised.
Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this and bring it back to the commission for comments. And we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Cisco.
Yeah, thank you. I was on the commission at the time we denied the conditional use permit on this site in 2004. And I kind of want to give the commission some history here. This denial was, it's not in a vacuum, in other words. At that time, there was a lot of community effort, particularly St. Rose neighborhood, West End neighborhood, Roseland neighborhoods. Carol Dean put together that map of areas of overconcentration. And we were meeting with officials, having a lot of issues about alcohol sales and where they may or may not be appropriate. At that time, we were turning down applications, and we also approved applications. Not like we just any alcohol outlet anywhere, but we were approving down applications that were near dead spots in already heavily impacted neighborhoods, like along the Joe Rodota Trail. The Chevron on Stony Point was not allowed to sell alcohol because of its proximity to the Joe Rodota Trail and the potential impacts there. And the gas station that was proposed and never built out on Fulton basically said we won't even ask for alcohol sales because they could see the tide. We had a denial of alcohol sales in a small market in the JC neighborhood because it was up against an alleyway. So it wasn't, nothing against the store. It's about the area around it, and a lot of community effort to have these things looked at. And like I mentioned before, at the time, the little corner of Sebastopol Road and Dutton was not annexed. We worked with Efren Carrillo and the Board of Supervisors. They were putting together their alcohol ordinance, and again, we showed them all the maps, over concentration, what can we do to not add any further impacts. It's not like we can get rid of the impacts, but it's like these are neighborhoods that already have impacts. Do you want to add one more opportunity to have those impacts? When I looked at the police statistics, and I really appreciate Ms. Murray's ability to get statistics. She's the best at it. But we as commissions, there have just been several issues in terms of every time we look at an alcohol use. One of the issues is we would look at the ABC maps for overconcentration, and the ABC maps don't match up with the police beat maps. So as a commission, we were trying to kind of figure out, well, there really is an overconcentration, but it's not showing up on our police beat maps. So there's just been a long history of trying to make really reasonable decisions about these kinds of uses with the kinds of things that we could get available to us. And like Ms. Crocker was saying, one of the things that we were frequently doing at that time, if we were approving alcohol sales, we were, as this particular applicant proposed, naively conditioning them to not have the fortified liquors, not have the large sales, because the single sales were particularly problematic. Well, lo and behold, one of the more disturbing moments of my career was to walk into a site that we had approved with those conditions and saw that they were selling single sales, and that's when we learned that we can condition it all that we want. They do not have to follow that condition, and like was said here, the ABC doesn't want that responsibility. So the one kind of cleanup measure we thought we had, we don't have. So that's just another piece of history as to how this has gone along. One of the reasons that markets want alcohol sales is because it's a very high profit margin. That's where they make money. And so you know, and again, I have no objection to this store. It's a lovely market, but I see the proposal as a public convenience and necessity as more of introducing an attractive nuisance to that particular site. Where that site is, they've done a great job of cleaning up the dead end area, but if you looked at the police statistics, calls for service, high calls for service across the street, which is now a vacant lot because of Midas being out of business. There's the corner of College in Cleveland, vacant lot. There's plenty of vacant dead spots that continue around here. I don't think that has changed. I don't think the issue of transient traffic through that neighborhood has changed. You can always find, well, like Commissioner Holton did, there's a problem, and you know, there's campers and RVs parked along Cleveland, along the railroad tracks. There's just a lot of issues that come up. In addition, the proximity to the homeless services, there's the living room, there's SAY Crisis Center, there's the Morgan Street businesses. It's in very close proximity to what has been a big problem, on-site sales with the Belvedere, the 440 Club, and I think it's called Round Robin now. Lots of issues just around that area that this neighborhood has been experiencing. So what was it? There's something else I was going to say about this history, but I think you're getting the picture. Oh, and also in that period of time, the city was suing the Dutton Plaza because of their market there and some of the impacts of their alcohol sales. And so again, that was pre-annexation. So it was a period of time, and this particular use came forward with us looking at that particular site and saying, hey, this one fits our concerns, and we don't want to add another attractive nuisance to impact this neighborhood any further. Some might say, what's one more, right? What's one more if it's a well-run neighborhood market? But it is one more, and I particularly think that's not a good idea. I think if you do look at the calls for service, there are even two with public intoxication directly on the site, and they're not even selling alcohol. So it's just a problem that it's not solvable. I so appreciate our police department. They're willing to tackle anything we throw at them, and they do a great job, but I'm not willing to vote yes on this. I can't make the nuisance finding, the last finding, and it's because of my long history with this as an issue, both as a neighborhood person and as a planning commissioner, and so I'll be voting no.
Thank you. We'll move on to Commissioner Holton.
So I really appreciate, I actually came into the market and I wasn't dressed in my normal business fare. I was wearing a pair of shorts and I got tattoos everywhere, and you guys were actually really, you probably don't even remember me because I just kind of passed in and passed out. You guys are really friendly. I really appreciated your guys' store. It was very, like Shauna said, it's really clean. It's very nice, really well put together. However, I am of the 100% same camp that Commissioner Cisco is in that I'm just really struggling to make the findings for finding 6. I'm just really not seeing how another CUP issued out to sell more alcohol in the public is going to be serving our public health and safety. So with that being said, I'll keep it short and concise, and I'll just say I'm not going to be in support of this project. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you. Thanks, staff, and thank you to the applicant for coming in. I really appreciate it. It's really fantastic that it sounds like you're running a really good business. listening to people, talk about, apparently it's clean, the cleanest tables, I think, was said today, the friendliest staff, the salads and the green stuff is fresh, and apparently the chicken wings are screaming. So, and that's the civic involvement. I think you mentioned donating water, and being involved civically. And when the young woman was here, she said, when there was, she goes to the store to get those tasty wings, that whenever there's a homeless person out there, you guys are really quick to have that person move along. And the franchisee himself said that if there are people hanging out there, you're really quick to move them along, and that's great. And you do all that business with the great wings and the salads, and you don't sell alcohol. So, and yet there's still, even with your own admission and the admission of the young woman, there's still a population of people hanging out that quickly get dealt with, but still need to be dealt with. And, when I look at finding 6, and which is why I ask the questions like, what does the rear fence actually do to make the findings different? Just a few extra steps. The health and safety and welfare of the neighborhood, it's hard. If we're talking about someone needing to walk 1,002 feet to satisfy that beer, that bottle of wine, Commissioner Cisco said it really well, it's just one more, right? But it's just one more. And I have a hard time with that, so I don't think I will be supporting the project. I do apologize, but I just don't think it's compatible with the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter.
Excuse me, can I just weigh in for a minute? We're just checking on the resolution, and some of you have been referencing finding number 6, and I believe that was the finding that was made in connection with the last application. So in our resolution, if you could clarify, I believe you're referencing finding E, granting the permit would not constitute a nuisance or be injurious or detrimental to the public interest. If you could just check your resolutions, and as we go through, if we could just be referencing the correct findings in the resolution at hand. And go ahead. Okay. And typically we start these discussions after we have read the motion for the resolution. I had thought it was going to maybe just be some light comments, but we ended up really delving into it. At this point, I think you can finish your comments, that I do want to remind the chair then that we will need to be making a motion, and then we can have additional discussion as to the particular findings, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crocker. It was, in fact, finding E that I was going to focus my comments on. I came into this hearing assuming, given what I know about the neighborhood, I do live very nearby. I ride my bike on the SMART trail that's a block away. I ride more often than I'd like to up and down College Avenue past the site. And I see the at-risk individuals in the neighborhood that granting this kind of permit could put additional pressure on. But I would like to remind the commission, and I really appreciate Commissioner Cisco's recounting of history and why we did what we did in the past. But I'd also like to remind the commission that we've changed the zoning in this area, and these types of mixed uses are the kinds of uses we envisioned for the neighborhood mixed use zoning that we adopted. And I think the applicant has demonstrated pretty well that they're willing to run a modern convenience store that would be appropriate. I wish we didn't have the kind of social issues that made us question whether or not a well-run convenience store that also happens to provide alcohol creates a nuisance in our community. But I'm not sure that it's the approval of the permit that would create that nuisance, but rather other social forces at work here that we're doing a pretty good job at bringing under control. But I will agree that we're talking about a neighborhood that does put certain individuals in our community under pressure. But I personally, from what I've seen just here today, can't see that this particular operation exacerbates that nuisance or creates additional hazards and risks to the public welfare. I think staff has made a reasonable presentation, and I think the applicant, what we've heard today is this is probably a better place to make alcohol sales than many of the other alcohol sales places that are available there, and they're being punished because they're kind of the last ones in. But I think I will be supporting the proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson, and then we'll have somebody enter the resolution. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself, it was a remarkably challenging item, and I think you're hearing that from my fellow commissioners. Certainly from my perspective as a general matter, and it's come up a lot when we've had cannabis items, alcohol is widely and easily available throughout the city of Santa Rosa at a variety of different retailers. Breweries, Fog Belt is not far away from here. The other convenience stores, the Safeway down the street. You know, we are a city in a state that has taken a pretty liberal approach to licensing alcohol sales. You know, I grew up in a state that had state liquor stores only. It did not seem to affect alcohol use, but, you know, I think the general availability of alcohol in the city may not be ideal from a policy perspective, but when it comes to the Planning Commission, I find myself in agreement with Commissioner Carter. I think that, you know, there's a lot of challenges that we're facing in terms of the land use issues and the findings we're required to make. When I hear from the SRPD that there's no concerns, when I hear that they are frequenting it regularly, it helps address, I think, for me, the finding that's been challenging for my fellow commissioners, which is finding E. I mean, is one more liquor license going to change the landscape? Is that going to alter the challenges the city has with housing and unhoused people and the issues they face? I don't think so. So I will be able to make all the findings and be voting in favor of the conditional use permit.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and have somebody enter the resolution.
Chair Weeks, did you want to share your comments and observations?
Oh, sure.
Or you can hold that if you'd like until
I'll
after
hold it
somebody
till after. If somebody
makes a
would
motion.
enter the resolution, which
I think we've got limited
Commissioner
options here, so I'll move the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Santa Rosa making findings and determinations and approving a conditional use permit to allow 7-Eleven, an existing convenience store at 136 College Avenue, to sell beer and wine for off-site consumption, city file number CUP22-052, and waive further reading.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So that was moved by Commissioner Peterson, seconded by Commissioner Carter, and we'll go back around, and I apologize for moving things in the wrong order. So we'll start with Commissioner Cisco.
You're not giving any comments?
I'm sorry?
You're not going to comment?
Oh, okay. I can comment now.
I just don't want to shut you down.
I have real mixed feelings about this. I think I have to look at the information that we have in front of us from the police department, from staff, from, the visits that a lot of us have made to the store. And while I don't think it's ideal, I will be supporting the project, and I'll be able to make all the findings. So that probably will be a tie vote.
It's not good.
If my math is correct. So how, can you please help me and give us some direction?
Yes, thank you, Chair Weeks. So at this point, yes, with a 6-member commission present this evening, it does appear to be a split vote. One option for the commission would be, if it remains a split vote, would be to continue the item to, I believe that your next meeting on September 14th, I don't believe that we have any recorded absences for that, and we should have a full commission, although it will be a full agenda. So we could continue it until we have a full commission.
If we don't continue it, the project just fails. What's the result if we don't continue it and we just
So there
have
would be
the
no
split vote?
action. In this instance, there was not a previous action taken, so there would be no action taken. So it would be an open permit that still needs action. Yes, because we could come back.
And if there is a vote and the vote is 3-3, what would be the next step?
Well, then there would be no action taken, and so then you could make a motion to continue to come back at a time when you had a full council, or if somebody else had another substitute motion that they wanted to make for consideration, they could do that as well. But we haven't yet taken a vote, so people may have had time to consider and think about all the thoughtful comments, but this is helpful to let you guys know where that would go, but we have not taken yet the vote.
And just a question, if it does remain at the tie, no action, does the applicant have the ability to appeal that to City Council, or what happens then?
That's not considered an appealable action.
Okay, so it's just done.
Correct. So I think we can bring it back at a later date, or you could continue it to a later date to come back for the full commission, so that we could get a definitive action that would be appealable if somebody wished to do so.
And that would require going through the entire staff report, going through all of this again?
If you brought a new one, if we continue it, you can choose to close the public hearing. We would have to ensure that Commissioner Duggan would come back. She'd have to watch the tape and be prepared to vote. You could also continue it and leave the public hearing open in case anybody else wanted to comment at that time.
So, recommendations from my fellow commissioners on which way we should go?
Well, I don't know if anybody has additional comments to share, but if not, then I would suggest that you go ahead and take a vote.
I'm sorry, that we take a vote?
Correct.
Okay.
You need to vote on the action, and
okay.
It may end up not 3-3.
Okay.
And then if it ends up 3-3, we can have that discussion as to whether you would like to make a motion to continue to a full commission.
Okay, so let's go ahead and then run through the commission, starting with Commissioner Cisco.
Are we taking the vote now?
Well, I think, don't we need to go through and see if we can make the findings and then come back and do the vote? Or since I skipped a step, we do the vote?
Oh, we did that.
I believe that I heard everybody as addressing the findings. We were specifically talking about finding E, formerly known as finding 6. So I have taken notes, and I believe I have adequate information as to how you felt on the findings. If anybody wants to make additional comments and change their prior comments or add to those, you may do so, but you can be free to vote yay or nay either way.
Okay, so let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Cisco?
No.
Commissioner Holton?
No.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
No.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that is tied 3-3. So we would go ahead and continue the item. I'm looking for nodding heads while I talk. Continue the item.
Well, we would have to have a motion to continue the item to a date
thank
certain, and then there could be discussion on that point if you wish, and then a vote on that. Did we come up with a date? Staff was discussing September 14th, but we're also going to have the Bunya Bunya appeal and the general plan study session on that date.
And I'd like to check and make sure that the applicant will be available as well.
So we could actually do a vote to continue it to the next available date for a full commission and the applicant availability?
No, I would like to have a date certain so that we don't have to renotice. So we need to 5-minute break, please. We can come up with a date that's agreeable to the applicant
Okay, so we'll
and
do a
to staff.
5-minute.
Recess.
Okay,
Thank you.
5-minute break? Thank you. Okay, I think, is everybody ready to go?
Yes, we are.
I'm sorry?
I think, yes, we're ready, and we've got some information on potential date for you, if that works. Okay. So in looking at the commission's availability as well as the applicant's availability, the best date appears to be the October 26th meeting of the commission. And that would, we would have a full 7-member commission that date, and it is available for the applicant team.
Okay, so help me with wording. Is it that we continue this item to October 25th? And then if somebody makes a motion to continue it to October 25th and then we vote on it?
It would be October 26th, but yes, I would ask for someone to make a motion to continue this item to the date of October 26th. And then a second and a vote.
Okay, would somebody like to do that?
To a date certain of October 26th. Thank you, Ms. Murray.
While I don't think you have to vote in favor of the item to make this motion, I will move, make a motion to continue to a date certain of October 26, 2023.
And I'll extend a laurel and second that.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was moved by Commissioner Peterson, seconded by Commissioner Holton. And if we could have a vote, please.
Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Sisko?
Aye.
Commissioner Holton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that passes with 6 ayes, and we will see the item again on October 25th, 2023. And with that, unless there's any other business, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
I'm sorry, did you say the 25th or the 26th?
What did you say, 26th?
I want to make sure that you said the 26th.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay.
I feel like I'm in an airplane with my ears.
Okay.
So October 26th, 2/6. And with that, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. Thanks, Ryan.